Rendezvous rules. For everyone's enjoyment and safety, no backpacks, animals, glass containers, outside alcohol/drinks, disorderly, intimidating, or threatening conduct, language, or gestures. Activity which results in physical harm or property damage, standing or sitting so as to block passage of other, distribution of literature, items, and or surveys. Please be advised we reserve the right to refuse admittance. The premises are under video surveillance. Service animals are welcome. So no distribution of literature. Okay. I was going to give away copies of Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, but I guess I'm not going to do that now.
Yeah, he was CCC, and I was wondering if he was out. He was up north. He was, at least that's what Chris told me. Like, you know, because she was telling me when we were driving down.
No hostile shots have ever been fired from the star-shaped fort built in the 1840s to guard against a British invasion from Canada, which never came. Hi.
No, we went there one time though. No, we're from the Detroit area.
You know, the missionary sent them. Did you hear? So I wonder if he's from Montreal.
Civil War period modifications, 1863 to 1868. During the Civil War, the fort's construction was radically modified to meet contemporary defensive design. A vertical brick masonry scarper wall replaced the old earthworks. Flanking casemats, rifle galleries, and service magazines were constructed in each of the fort's 4 bastions. New cannon embrasures were designed, and interior stone breast-type walls replaced the original cedar timbers.
I'm doing pictures as I go along here. I haven't gotten very far.
I was just saying when we first, got here, I saw you taking pictures over there.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking pictures of all the native plants and getting them into my app so that I can.
Bonjour.
I found it's not good.
Bonjour.
This is if I could put my outfit on.
I'm sure the French military architect Vauban would probably like this type of wall.
There's still one left in the United States, one blockbuster.
So there used to be one.
Bonjour.
There was one like apartment building somewhere in Alaska. But I think
Okay.
there's like
Okay, so these things are doors, and this is a second set of doors. And it's hard to see here, but the roof has kind of like an arch. Nice stone floor. Should do something like this at the house. And I think this is the room where religious cults come to perform human sacrifices. You don't have to come if you don't want to. It's not really, I just, yes, I'll be back in a few moments. Looks like this is a good place to sit down and shoot out towards the enemy who never came. Another nice spot. You can shoot out, but hard to shoot in. Nice stone floor again.
What is the upper window for though? Maybe just banking?
No, but I'm not gonna wait for you to take the picture and walk through it. I don't know, it's getting pretty dark in here though.
I don't think there's
Got a
a...
flashlight?
I don't think there's a doorway.
Yeah, it's probably where the journey ends.
I don't know. Wow.
Piggyback on someone else's flashlight.
How far is it? I don't even know if there's stuff there. I don't have my other glasses.
You didn't charge very much.
Oh, it's just basically a glorified closet.
It's got a sprinkler. Is that a sprinkler?
Huh, it does have a sprinkler up there.
You think that's electric outlet? Way up there?
Could be, yeah.
Go down the side of the wall.
Well, I can see the pipe, but
Yeah, it's probably like that.
so that one goes through? No. It's just a hole in the wall.
Well, they never were attacked, so they never did.
Better watch your step.
Oh, thank you.
That's right. Yeah, there was never a shot fired.
Watch your step there, ladies.
Oh, yeah, we're
No
going
step
to.
down.
I'm
No
gonna turn my,
step here.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
find my
There's a
phone.
step there.
That's a smart idea. Get your phone out.
We need it for that little room.
Yeah.
'Cause there's-
Bonjour.
Step here.
Okay, looks like that thing over there is for ventilation. A nice vaulted ceiling again. Wish I could reproduce this at home, but I gotta win the lottery first.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty interesting in there.
Wow. I didn't go with that. It was a tiny keychain with the prayer, Our Father who art in heaven.
Oh, and this is the wife, just in case people think I make her up, because she never...
Say it again.
This is the wife on camera who many people think I make up because they never see her.
You made up.
Yeah, a lot of people think they're made up.
Signed her radio Fox News.
Oh, nice lamp. Oh, a nice thick wooden doors. Okay, and here we are. So I guess that's where they're probably going to play the music and stuff. It's supposed to be some music at 1:15 p.m.
They didn't give me, I think I should have got one of those, but I don't want to, what time is it now?
It's about 12:40. And over here appears to be the reenactors. the reenactors. So Ancestry.com says I have a lot of 7th cousins around here. Even though my mother was born in France, my father was born in Massachusetts, he had 3 Quebecois grandparents. So for me that makes 3 Quebecois great-grandparents. So a lot of these people here might be my cousins and we just don't know.
Oh. That's not where it was? Nope. Then I'm guessing it's right where the
Hi.
Hello. That's where I thought it would be. I went through both of those.
Got some period costume here.
Over to the right, he had a tray of hot dogs and hamburgers. As soon as I got in there, he picked them up and scurried off. I don't know where they went. So.
Do you have any questions?
Oh, I'm just filming for YouTube.
It's weird because my guess is they're not ready yet.
No, because Joey's wife came out with food. But I didn't see what door she came out with.
So she bought some food
Looks like a competition of strength here. This is probably how my Quebecois ancestors lived a few centuries ago. Knock, knock.
Oh, it's too slippery.
Knock, knock.
Yeah, there's people.
Oh, sorry. Thought that.
Don't go in.
Oh, sorry.
If it's open, you can.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, don't go in. This one's open. Yeah.
Oh, in there?
No, look at the tent.
Look at that tent. Well, I mean, the art kit. Yeah. There's all kinds of things. You can take it. Center soft.
Yeah.
Put the quill down in that, and they have hoops. They're about this wide hoops. And the kid on one side threw the corn cob. The idea of the other kid to move it and catch it, have it go through. Yeah, wow. And if they don't get them, they're out and nuts. They all get turns on the throwing side and on the catching side.
My dad grew up in Tennessee and he said in the creeks there, and he just passed. And he left me all these arrowheads. My father would go in the creek.
There's this. Looks like some weapons my French-Canadian ancestors might have operated.
Okay. Oh, I found out Zoe likes pistachios.
And furniture my French-Canadian ancestors might have had.
Next time I go up north, I'll get you a ton of cheddar cheese and horseradish. Emily, come here, baby.
Ah.
There are longer versions of
Yes.
This is utility. Or just in really close situations.
Can you tell us about your hat? What's the significance of your hats?
I think you're better about this. You want to talk about the hats?
The hat is called a round hat. The original hats.
Yes.
You can see this is kind of in the shape of his head, oval. Well, the original round hats were round. So when you plopped it on your head, actually it would form to the size of your head. Eventually turn into more of a regular hat. But these were common on the frontier. It was part of the style of the period. And later, of course, it would develop into the top hat and so on. The best ones were made of beaver. These are probably wool felt. And if you turn to the side, you see that all of our militiamen wore a black cockade. And that was common in the American Army. Unfortunately, it was also common in the British Army, so it didn't mean much. But we were told to wear a silver eagle on it. And that showed that you were patriotic, that you were
So again, what's the circle called?
Cockade.
Say it's cockade?
Cockade.
Cockade.
Yep. C-O-C-K-A-I-D-E.
I'm going to talk about French cars. What percentage of soldiers' hats fell off during combat?
Lots. Again, it depends. If you're standing in line formation, these things don't really fall off as much.
Yeah.
But if you're running through the woods, it's a different story.
It's honestly a pretty sturdy hat.
Yeah. And I like it better than a tricorn. Don't tell the French Marines over there. Because it at least attempts to get the sun out of my eyes.
The thing is, it was cheaper also. The officers were supposed to wear cocked hats, which are like the tricorn, but the front's turned way up, almost like Napoleon looking. But they were expensive, so our officers petitioned to be allowed to wear round hats just like the men, and they were given that permission. But they also wanted them to be a little distinctive, so they suggested putting a bear skin over the top of it.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Were they made in Detroit, the Michigan area?
Yes, because our governor, in his wisdom...
We're talking about Mason?
Oh, no, this is much earlier. This would be Hull.
Okay.
Governor Hull. He had the militiamen make their own uniforms. So these guys could go make their own or have their wives work on it or go to a seamstress or a tailor. And just to make sure they had the right cloth, Hull imported this particular type of blue. So that's where you went to get your stuff. And as far as making the hats, I don't know that there was no industry here, but the hats were available and they were cheap. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Have any more questions?
So you said that you had to have blue in the uniform.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and I don't. Yeah. That's because my uniform is less of a militiaman, more of it's a hunting frock. So this is a summer, fall kind of just coat that I would wear out as I go trapping, hunting, running through the woods, doing things with the Indians, doing trade and all that. But at the same time, if there's British people invading the territory, if there's Indians, sacking people, I'm just going to run and help. I have a musket. It's my tool that I need for my survival, for my defense, and I train occasionally. I can help. I can shoot.
The official uniform of a militiaman, the unofficial.
Yeah.
Okay. Think of it that way.
All right. The key is to have the blue. Is that what you're saying?
Ideally, you'd have the blue. Another side thing with the militia is it was kind of a social club within your community. Like you were somebody if you joined the militia. And during the militia trainings, like yes, the men would be out there doing all their military stuff all day, marching, firing guns, things like that. Whatever you're doing for your training. but at night the wives and the families would meet up together, and it was way more of a community party than strictly a military operation.
Were they paid?
I don't know.
Our unit was paid, and you were entitled to a certain amount of pay if your militia unit was activated for service. Every male, able-bodied male in the community from the age of 16 up to 60 was enrolled in the militia system. They weren't all called out at once because you can't have all your farmers in the Army or the Army won't get fed.
Right.
So the people that were wearing, the whole militia was ordered to do this. But my company, the LaCroix Company, were volunteers from all the other militiamen, and they were given higher pay and put more. They were actually, their duties were to protect the roads, protect the mail, help Hull's Army get to Detroit, do patrols, stuff like that. We were involved in the siege of Detroit and also in some of the battles like Mungwagon and Brownstown. But we were only officially in existence for like about 3 months. And when Governor Hull surrendered Detroit to the British, he surrendered all of Michigan territory. So we suddenly became prisoners of war. We weren't locked up, we were just put on parole, which meant we weren't supposed to take part in any hostilities.
I solemnly swear I will not fight you.
Right. Did they go back to farming? Is that what a lot of them did to avoid?
Those that could, because there was a lot of destruction by the war, and especially after the Battle of the River Raisin in January of 1813, the farms were practically destroyed. Livestock was killed or taken away. Crops were destroyed. There was no seed stock left. That's when we started eating muskrats en masse. The muskrat actually saved the population because that was about the only meat you could find. Even the deer were gone. Muskrats and squashes. That's the basic diet. And fruit. We still had our fruit trees, French pears and all those.
Our area, so our group is out of Frenchtown, modern-day Monroe, Michigan.
Right.
And during the War of 1812, the generals saw this area, because it was well developed as far as farmland, as more of the breadbasket of the area. So there's constant forays into the area to try and get fodder for the armies, whether it's from the Canadians trying to sail over and buy food from us, or it's the Americans marching through and picking up food as they go. So that's why just south of here was very important to the local defense of Michigan.
What impact did Isaac Shelby play on 1812?
He was a governor of Kentucky, and after the Battle of the River Raisin, he joined up with Harrison's army and actually led Kentucky troops up to the Battle of the Thames in Canada. So he's part of that turning point in the war. We're from Shelby County or Township or?
Shelby Street in
okay.
Detroit, for example. Would Shelby's men have different outfits than these fellows?
His men probably had hunting shirts like that, but they would be black or blue, with, or sometimes other colors. But the one unit I'm familiar with is Johnson's Mounted Infantry, and they had black hunting shirts trimmed with red, so all the fringe on it would be red. Kind of sharp looking, but otherwise the same.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, where's what's his name when you need it? Because we have somebody in our group that actually wears that kind of a hunting frock.
Oh, really?
So yeah. Chase. Yeah, where's Chase when you need him? Yeah.
And actually, since our militia was deactivated for a period of about a year or so, some of our men joined Johnson's. That's why we know about it. They were at the Thames, and they claim to have seen Tecumseh killed and all kinds of things. These stories are collected like 40 years later, so there's a lot of embellishment.
There's nobody there to say, no, you didn't.
Liar.
Right.
That's what they say now. They just call you a liar. They never did that before, but
I want to go that far.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of people that were called out for, their service stories that ended up not even being true. So, I mean, lying is not an invention of the 20th century.
What effect did alcohol play among the
Alcohol was a lubricant of the fur trade. So we were children of the fur trade, basically, and it was extremely popular. The basic thing was whiskey. The first two industries on the River Raisin were mills and distilleries. And of course we got in trouble sometimes by selling alcohol to the Indians.
Right.
But that was just a part of our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when it comes to warfare, alcohol is always something that commanders are always watching their men for, because given any chance, soldiers will drink.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember reading this correctly, but during the Battle of the River Raisin, some of the native fighters actually got sidetracked when they found stores of whiskey in Frenchtown. So yes, they came through and did whatever they want, but they found the whiskey, drank the whiskey, and ended up kind of getting distracted by other things. And luckily it ended up that way instead of turning around the other way and being more violent, which is normally what you see in records of liquor in armies during this time of history.
So the more liquor, the more courage you have? Is that
the army?
Soldiers were issued whiskey ration.
Really?
Yeah.
The officers were careful, though. They wanted you to drink it right away and not save it up so you'd have enough to get drunk on.
Just enough to increase your courage, but not enough to get drunk.
As well as medicinal purposes, morale.
Yeah, morale. If they wanted to reward the troops, they give them an extra ration.
Yep. If they want to punish you, they don't give you your ration. Things like that.
For example, we were at a reenactment the other year, and I saved a officer's plume. It got stranded on the battlefield. And so I returned it to him. And so as a reward, he gave me some of his rum ration.
And how much of the rum did he give you?
Yes.
A couple ounces?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple ounces.
151 proof? Or what?
No, not that much.
Not rubbing the shine off your teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember the officer. I think he's a very good man. I hold him in high regard.
Well, he's going to heaven.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, no question. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anytime, guys.
Thank you. Very nice.
Didn't film the cannon.
There was no explanation.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. It's only for the hot dogs and burgers.
A hunting bayonet. They used it as a knife, and it was to dispatch animals. If you shot a bear, for instance, and you went up to them and you didn't want to load or waste any more ammunition and you wanted to defend yourself, you would stick that in the end of the barrel, but you could also use it as a knife. I just learned that there was a hunting bayonet, whereas the military and what in our time period of 1750s, now the militia or the milice would actually carry one of these because their guns would be like that with no spot to put the bayonet on.
Right. Okay. Very cool.
Then this is my wife's pistol. It's a 16.
Personal use? Carries in your purse?
In your muff or wherever. It's a defensive weapon because you really don't want to start a war. But as soon as I said that, other than having a percussion lock, this is the size of gun that killed Abraham Lincoln. So it works if you're this far away.
Sure. Yeah. That's about
But we tried shooting it. You're pretty safe at 5 yards. You probably could, okay,
dodge it.
Not going to get me.
Yeah.
But we're finding out that there's far more pocket pistols, small guns like this on the frontier than anyone ever gave it credit for. Now, my friend made this gun for my wife. This one here, he got me the parts, the butt cap, the trigger guard, the side plate, and the trigger guard were all copied off of original 1733 French military pistol. And then I whittled the wood away, and there we got it.
Is that oak that's made of?
No, that's all walnut.
Walnut, okay.
Yes, everything I have here is walnut.
Okay.
So I made the long gun, this one, and over there. And there's lots of stuff in there, so we can talk about it. Anyway, stay, don't go. Does anybody want me to talk about cards? Do you have any other questions? See, we were here first. Do you have any other questions about guns or whatever?
Ask away.
All right. Anybody play cards? Do you ever wonder about cards? How old do you think the cards that we play today, the decks and all that, when do you think that was put together?
Maybe around the time of Henry IV or something?
How about 1567? Give or take a month. In Rouen, France, Pierre Marchal put together the deck of cards that we still play today. All right? There was a lot of different suits out there. Okay? He's the one that picked the suits that we still play.
Stagecoach number 6. Yeah, coach stop number 6. Actually, it was train stop at one time.
In French, it's called clover or trefoil. It's an insignia of a farmer. It's clover. The reason the British called it a club, I believe, is because the Spanish deck had a club in it that they threw away and put the clover in place of, but they decided not to call it clover or trefoil. They called it a club. So if you're going to get hit in the head with a club, let's do it with clover, right?
Yeah, I'd rather do that.
There you go.
Never knew that.
Diamonds. For the merchants, they're starting to make more money even than the nobles in cases. In French, this is called a cœur. It's a heart. You ever had courage?
Yeah, heart. C-O.
See all the French words that pop in that you don't realize are there?
The connection.
This is for the clergy. They console you. They have heart for you. They marry you. If you're dying, they console the people. Now, for the peak, 1567. This is an insignia of a French soldier from 1500s. You ever heard of a pike? Just a long spear in English? It was called a pique in French. If you're in the military, especially the Marine Corps, if you look at the ornament on top of the flagpole they march around with, you will see one of these. The U.S. Marines still call this a pique. It's an insignia of a French soldier from 1500s. Now you take it one step farther, you're a pirate. You're a pirate, but you're a bad pirate because you're stealing from the other pirates. They're going to put you on the spot and give you an ace of spades. That means you're dead. It went to the Vietnam War as a dead card too, but that was from the pirates 300 years before that. By the way, the kings, anybody know what the French king is called in French?
Le Roi. Or in Quebecois, Le Way.
If you see the word Leroy, I said this to a gentleman the other day. I go, "What's your name?" He goes, "Leroy." I go, "King." He goes, "What?" I says, "Well, tell your wife you're the king." That went over good, but Le Roi. So if you hear the French soldiers marching around and they're being dismissed, they thank the king. They go, "Vive le roi." It means, "Long live the king. Thank you for letting us go and take it easy now."
I'm doing all right too. Oh, yeah.
The kings are David, Alexander, Caesar, and Charlemagne. There's also names for the queens. One of the valets, if you look up Jack, it means servant. If you're a valet to the king, one of them is Lancelot.
How long a drive was it for you?
How's that for cards that you had no idea all about? Now I'm going to pass this around. You can see the original French deck, the British deck. After 60 years, they said we're not going to do a French deck anymore, and then a modern deck. So if you want to pass it to each other, they can see it up close. What the British did is they changed the very Catholic globe with the cross Lorraine on it, okay, with Protestant things. And they took the fleur-de-lis off the one king and changed the king's names to British kings. And then you can see a modern deck, obviously. And then somebody mentioned to me that I didn't like that modern deck, so I shot a hole in it with my musket. So if I think you already caught the gist of that one.
Now that thing around your neck means you're an officer?
No.
No.
But that's a very good thought in the fact that, yes, over there, this gentleman will walk out, he doesn't have it on. He has a military style one on. That would have, the military captains would have it, a gorget. It's the last remnant of medieval armor. On the one he would have would be brass or gold, and that insignia would be on it. Now if you look at it real close, there's 3 fleur-de-lis on it. And because it's a Catholic king, the fleur-de-lis means the flower of the lily. That's the insignia of the French king. And because he was Catholic, that's 3 of them, Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
That was
So.
the issue, getting...
And you know how pure he was.
Get
So.
off at Clark Road, do a big detour around and come down Junction and then...
So would that be on your
Yes,
thing?
it would be on this, but it would. This one's a trade item. We're here to trade with the Indians for furs. Any of the stuff here, we would try to trade for furs. Pretty good shot, though, wasn't it?
Ah, yeah.
Again, you can see the crown on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a specific sign of the king. Believe it or not, the French flag of the time was all white. Okay, the way it's been explained to me, okay, if the French were going to do a parley in French means to speak, okay, parley, they would hold up a red flag, the French would. The British would hold up a white flag because they usually did not have a white flag in their camp. The French didn't usually have a red flag in their camp because they'd have the white flag. If the French conquered another soldier or a city or whatever, what do? You take the enemy's flags down and you put your own flag up. So it wasn't a surrender flag other than the fact that the other team surrendered. So that's where it sort of gets confused. There is a painting of at Yorktown where the French are on one side and the Americans on the other side, and the British are kind of coming down the middle to give up their guns. You look at the so-called American flag and then you look at the white flag that the French were held. That's the French flag was white. It was not, had nothing to do with the surrender. It was the French had helped us. The King of France had helped us at that time. It didn't go until the French Revolution in 1789 or something that they said we don't want white flags anymore. We're going to do the new tricolor, and all that happened then. So
So when did they start that, the tricolor?
Not until about 1789, somewhere around there. They wanted to get rid of the king stuff. And believe it or not, the fleur-de-lis, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The fleur-de-lis was banned in France because it was the king and all the nobles that were causing all these people to starve, and they'd have all this wealth. And so there was a time when fleur-de-lis were totally banned. Now, if you show that, unless you're a Boy Scout, but that came from the compass. The Boy Scout insignia came from the fleur-de-lis, but it was the north of the compass. So if you have any other questions, I got answers.
Is that a long knife, the one that they would wear around their neck?
I'm sorry, what?
The long knife, would that be something they would wear around their neck?
Probably the one that they would have around their neck would be this one. Now, if you look at a lot of Native American paintings of the time, even later time period, you're showing off your wealth, which is going to cost more, which is going to get more furs. So what they did is they would do porcupine quill work on this, hanging around your neck. And if you look at the paintings, you will see a filigree knife like this, because they're showing off their wealth. Or they would show off their gorgets. The gorgets were like sometimes three-tiered. And again, it depends a lot on the time period and what natives you're talking about. This was a knife that more of the Americans would do. They had a love of using deer antlers to make handles. But the trade knives were all these things here. These are all folding knives. These are all copied from originals. The only original thing I have is this cannonball out of the Straits of Mackinac. If you want to feel the weight of it, be my guest. Show it to them if you wish.
Probably never been fired, right?
Probably not. But it wouldn't, the shape wouldn't have, it's cast, so it's not like lead or anything. Did I tell you what this was? It's a hook. I will. Do you know French?
Un petit peu. Ma femme est née en France.
I'm not going to ask you that because I want to see how these people respond to this. Okay? What is the French word for hook? And you know it, but you don't know it.
I don't know.
Crochet.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's what you said.
Oh, you did say that.
You did say that.
You look at the crochet hooks in the stores and you go, crochet hook, French, crochet. I'm going to take that to a modern time period.
It sounded French.
Velour, crochet, V-E-L, crow, Velcro. Brand new word coming from two French words, velour and crochet, hook. That's exactly what crochet is, or that's exactly what velour is. So if you really pay a lot of attention to the French language and then you look at English language, the French pop out all the time. Pronounced differently in most cases.
Are you French?
I am finally allowed to say yes. Of all the years that I have been doing this, I've always focused on Native American and French. I was born and raised in Détroit, Detroit, okay? And I said, I'm going to look up the history of that, all right? Turns out that my grandfather's grandfather came over from France. My grandfather's grandmother also came over from France. The last name is Girraud of my great something or other grandmother. And I'm thinking that the ancestry of Briar or Brie was actually from France according to the census. But the rest of me is Scottish and German. But I've always graduated towards the French. I love the way that the Native Americans, for the most part, in here, this area, got along together. They intermingled, took on each other's customs. As a quick, for instance, the French used the toboggan that the natives call a toboggan. The French actually called it a tran. Tran in French is train in English, and train means to pull. And that's what a train does it not? It pulls. So see how the French words kind of creep right in, and then they're like, oh, wow, there it is, you know. It was like, this here is a tente. It's a tent. This is a lantern in French, pronounced slightly differently. So, I mean, you can just go through. Muscat actually meant bird of prey in French. I can only think it's because of the lock mechanisms. So, I mean, there's... In fact, I just learned this one, Ralph. Help me pronounce it. Muscatoon à trompette. It's a blunderbuss. It looks like a trumpet. The French called it a trumpet, so to speak. A muscatoon meaning a shorter weapon. Hey, this is my sister. This is Ralph. This is my sister, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Enjoy yourself and maybe some water for the little one. I see she's got her kitty with her.
Across the way there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be a great profile picture.
Yeah, oh yeah.
This is Facebook.
Facebook profile.
I just use that as a comparison.
Oh, right.
The difference between a Revolutionary War round and,
You know, these people,
Civil War.
where do you live?
We're from Shelby Township.
Oh, Shelby Township. Okay, well, I live in Utah. These things are running all over your backyard.
Yeah.
1850.
We have been very fortunate with the skunks. We've got 2 big dogs, and I do not want them to get...
Don't worry, they're there.
They're there, yep. They're there.
Every once in a while, you see the dogs running off into the dark.
Actually, we use that. We actually cut the pieces off the night before and soak them in water. Because it have a very high salty flavor to it. And then as we would change the water, then we would use them in soups and stews.
You ain't Chuck, are you?
I'm gonna head over there. They're playing some Native American music. 1:15.